Call them trash pandas. Laugh at the internet videos of them waddling away with your stolen pizza. We love to look down on raccoons as nature's goofy, clumsy scavengers, just furry little idiots surviving on the scraps of human greatness. But human arrogance is a dangerous thing. The cute trash panda is a comforting lie. They aren't struggling to survive in our world, they are actively hacking it. In this video, we are stripping away the memes to expose the terrifying, hyper-intelligent reality of nature's ultimate urban survivor. You are going to discover how their hands possess the tactile computing power of a primate, how they run ruthless biological mafia syndicates right in your backyard, and how human engineering is accidentally triggering an accelerated, terrifying evolution in their brains. Forget the rats. Forget the coyotes. By the end of this deep dive, you will realize the unsettling truth. Humanity isn't keeping raccoons out of our cities. We are just teaching them how to pick better locks. The liquid skeleton. To truly understand why human architecture completely fails to stop a raccoon, you have to look past their thick fur and examine their deeply disturbing, almost alien anatomy. At first glance, a massive 20 to 30-pound adult male raccoon looks like a solid, incredibly bulky animal. But beneath that thick layer of winter fat, their skeletal structure is fundamentally broken, and nature broke it in the best way possible. Unlike humans, dogs, or cats, raccoons operate with a skeletal cheat code. They essentially lack rigid, fully developed collarbones. Their clavicles are tiny, floating vestiges of cartilage and bone that do not attach their shoulders rigidly to their sternum. Because of this missing structural limit, their entire rib cage and shoulder girdle are highly compressible. They operate on a terrifying principle of biological physics. If their skull can fit through a gap, the rest of their body can liquefy, flatten, and follow. A raccoon's skull is only about 3.5 to 4 inches wide. This means a creature the size of a medium hunting dog can actively deform its own skeleton, compress its internal organs, and pour itself through a 4-inch gap in your roof, a narrow ventilation shaft, or the steel bars of a reinforced gate. You think you built an impenetrable fortress to protect your home or your livestock? The raccoon looks at your fortress, dislocates its own shoulders, and silently invites itself into your attic. The 180-degree ankles. If you have ever owned a domestic cat, you know the classic, frustrating dilemma. A cat will climb to the top of a massive oak tree to escape a barking dog, and then spend the next 6 hours crying in panic because it doesn't know how to get down. Feline claws are curved backward. They are masterfully designed for going up, but terrible for going down. When a cat tries to descend a vertical drop, gravity immediately turns against it, forcing it to back down awkwardly and blindly. The raccoon does not suffer from this biological design flaw. They have evolved the anatomy of an elite tactical mountaineer. The joints in a raccoon's hind ankles are incredibly, almost unnervingly hypermobile. When a raccoon wants to climb down from a towering 50-foot pine tree or the sheer brick wall of a 3-story apartment building, it simply rotates its hind feet a full 180 degrees until its heels are facing completely forward. By reversing its own ankles, its hind claws are instantly turned into deeply anchored, weight-bearing grappling hooks. This allows them to descend completely vertical surfaces head first at high speeds. Not only does this let them see exactly where they are going, but it keeps their dexterous front paws entirely free to fight off predators, scan for hidden threats, or firmly hold on to stolen food. They don't just climb, they actively hack the laws of gravity, seeing with their hands. There is a massive, widely believed myth that raccoons are secretly nature's neat freaks. We watch them aggressively dunking a piece of stolen bread or a dead frog into a murky puddle of water, rubbing it vigorously between their paws, and we assume they are washing their food like civilized little citizens. Even the German language calls them Waschbär, the washing bear. This is a complete biological lie. Raccoons do not care about hygiene. They are running a high-tech biometric scan. Because raccoons lack the specific salivary glands needed to easily break down dry food, water helps them swallow. But the real magic happens deep inside their central nervous system. The raccoon's somatosensory cortex, the specific region of the brain dedicated entirely to processing the sense of touch, is massive, rivaling that of higher primates. Furthermore, their hairless front paws are packed with 5 times more mechanoreceptors than most other mammals on Earth. When a raccoon dips its paws into water, the moisture softens the thick, hard layer of keratin on their skin, fully exposing thousands of highly sensitive nerve endings. By rolling a piece of garbage, a lock, or a dead animal underwater, they are effectively seeing it with their hands. In pitch darkness, without ever using their eyes, they can instantly calculate the exact weight, density, temperature, and structural integrity of an object. They aren't washing the trash. They are downloading its physical schematics directly into their brain. The tactile radar. So, we know their hands operate as biological supercomputers. But how do they physically navigate the pitch-black, highly dangerous environments of human cities? How does a raccoon run through a completely unlit, abandoned warehouse filled with rusty nails, broken glass, unstable floors, and hidden human traps without making a single sound or breaking a leg? Most nocturnal animals rely strictly on their night vision, or the long whiskers on their face, to feel their way through the dark. Raccoons, however, took their sensory evolution a step further. They have vibrissae, highly sensitive, stiff sensory hairs, growing not just on their snout, but projecting directly out of their wrists and ankles. These are not normal patches of fur. They are deeply connected to the raccoon's central nervous system. As a raccoon moves through total darkness, these ankle-mounted sensors pick up microscopic changes in air pressure and tiny vibrations rolling across the ground. Before a raccoon even places its foot down in the dark, its ankle radar tells it exactly what it is about to step on. It can physically feel the sudden drop of a staircase, the sharp edge of a steel trap, or the rhythmic breathing of a sleeping predator without ever making physical contact. It is a built-in, tactical sonar system designed specifically for dominating the urban underworld. The biological SAFECRACKER. If you look at the foundation of human civilization, it is built on one distinct anatomical feature: the opposable thumb. It is what allowed primates to grasp tools, forge weapons, and build cities. Raccoons do not have opposable thumbs. By all the laws of evolutionary biology, they should be clumsy. Yet, they are the undisputed safecrackers of the animal kingdom. How do they do it? While they lack a thumb, a raccoon possesses 5 highly elongated, perfectly independent fingers. This independence gives them the manual dexterity of a close-up magician. But physical dexterity is useless without the software to run it. And this is where the raccoon's brain becomes truly terrifying. In 1907, a pioneering animal behaviorist named H.B. Davis decided to test raccoon intelligence. He didn't use simple mazes. He used human security protocols. Davis presented the raccoons with boxes secured by 11 different types of complex mechanisms: heavy sliding bolts, iron hooks, latches, push bars, and multi-step levers. The raccoons didn't just open them. They systematically reverse-engineered them. They used their sensitive fingers to feel the internal tumblers and friction points. Once a raccoon successfully picked a lock, something incredible happened. They committed the physical algorithm to their procedural memory. Davis found that if you brought the exact same lock back to a raccoon more than 3 years later, even if he mounted the lock upside down or sideways to confuse them, the raccoon would unlock it flawlessly in seconds, without looking. Your heavy-duty padlocks, your complex carabiners, and your secure latches are not deterrents to a raccoon. They are simply mild inconveniences that keep their minds sharp. The missing panic gene and NEOPHILIA. To survive in the unforgiving wild, an animal must strictly obey a fundamental rule: fear the unknown. If a coyote, a fox, or a feral cat encounters a strange metallic object snapping shut, or finds itself trapped inside a steel cage, its biological response is immediate, explosive panic. A trapped coyote will thrash violently against the bars, tear out its own claws, shatter its canine teeth, and bleed profusely in a desperate, blind attempt to escape. The adrenaline takes over, and higher cognitive functions completely shut down. The raccoon is the chilling exception to this rule. Raccoons suffer from a cognitive condition known in biology as NEOPHILIA, an extreme, overwhelming attraction to new and novel things. In a raccoon's brain, the neurological drive for curiosity is so incredibly powerful that it can actively override the instinct of fear. When a raccoon is caught in a steel live trap, it does not throw a bloody tantrum. It sits down. It remains chillingly calm. It extends its hypersensitive fingers through the steel mesh, methodically tracing the bars, feeling the tension of the springs, and analyzing the locking mechanism that trapped it. It uses cold, calculated logic in a life-or-death situation. This missing panic gene is precisely why loud noises, flashing deterrent lights, and complex traps rarely work for long. You cannot terrorize an animal that treats your security measures like an escape room puzzle. The Toronto Green Bin War. If you want definitive proof of how outmatched humans are, look no further than the catastrophic, multi-million-dollar humiliation of Toronto, Canada. Toronto is often considered the raccoon capital of the world, and by 2015, the City Council had enough. The raccoons were tearing the city's trash infrastructure apart. So, the city initiated a massive, highly publicized cognitive arms race. Toronto spent a staggering $31 million to design and deploy the ultimate raccoon-proof green garbage bin. The city hired elite sanitation engineers who spent months designing a bin equipped with a complex gravity lock. The logic was sound. A human hand could easily turn the dial to open it, and when the garbage truck picked it up and inverted it, gravity would automatically release the lock. The engineers proudly paraded these bins in press conferences, declaring total victory over the trash pandas. The victory lasted less than 2 weeks. The raccoons didn't try to chew through the thick industrial plastic, and they didn't try to brute force the dial. Instead, they observed how the bins worked. They realized that if they climbed on top of the bin and used their body weight to tip it over at a very specific, calculated angle, the internal gravity latch would be tricked into thinking it was being lifted by a garbage truck, and it would click open on its own. The raccoons literally used the engineer's own physics against them. A $31 million human engineering project was completely dismantled by animals operating on leftover pizza and pure spite. The accelerated urban evolution. Here's the darkest truth about our battle with raccoons. We are not defeating them. We are training them. We are actively creating a biological superbreed. Dr. Suzanne McDonald, a leading animal behaviorist, conducted a multi-year study comparing the intelligence of wild, rural raccoons living out in the country to the urban raccoons living in massive metropolitan cities. The results were deeply unsettling. When presented with a locked puzzle box containing highly fragrant cat food, the rural raccoons approached it, sniffed it, and when they couldn't open it easily, they simply gave up and walked away to forage for easier food, like bugs and berries. The urban raccoons, however, were relentless. They possessed a staggering level of persistence and problem-solving capability. They systematically dismantled the locks, demonstrating cognitive skills that their country cousins entirely lacked. Because we have spent the last 100 years building complicated garbage cans, locking dumpsters, sealing attics, and setting complex traps, we have accidentally created an intense evolutionary pressure cooker. The dumb urban raccoons starve or get caught. The geniuses survive, breed, and pass their hacker genetics down to the next generation. We think our concrete cities are pushing nature away, but for the raccoon, the city is an elite, high-tech gymnasium designed specifically to accelerate their brain development. We are forcing them to evolve. The fission-fusion mafia. Because we usually only see a single raccoon darting across a suburban street in the glare of our headlights, we have comfortably assumed that they are solitary drifters, lonely scavengers wandering the night. This is a massive, fundamental misunderstanding of their social architecture. When zoologists finally started tracking urban raccoons with advanced GPS collars, they realized they were looking at a highly organized, deeply complex criminal syndicate. Raccoons operate on a social structure known as fission-fusion. Before this discovery, biologists believed this level of social fluidity was reserved almost exclusively for higher-order mammals like chimpanzees, dolphins, and humans. At night, they use the fission tactic, breaking up to forage alone or in pairs so they don't draw the attention of roaming dogs or animal control. But during the day, they use fusion, gathering in secure, hidden bases. But it gets much darker. Adult males, realizing that surviving the urban jungle alone is impossible, will form non-related coalitions. These are gangs of up to 4 or 5 massive males that act as the enforcers of the neighborhood. They establish a strict territory and patrol its borders. If a foreign rival male wanders into their neighborhood looking for trash or a mate, the coalition does not just chase him away. They orchestrate a coordinated tactical ambush. They corner the intruder and ruthlessly execute him to eliminate the competition. Meanwhile, the females operate in secretive matriarchal networks, sharing prime real estate like heated commercial ventilation shafts. That raccoon in your backyard isn't a lone wanderer. He is either a scout for the local syndicate or a marked man running for his life. The biological darknet. If these urban syndicates are constantly avoiding each other to prevent bloody territorial wars, how do they coordinate? How does a neighborhood of 50 raccoons know exactly who is sick, who is strong, and who is ready to mate without ever making a sound? They use a deeply complex chemical version of the darknet. Biologists call them communal latrines. Raccoons are notoriously meticulous about where they leave their waste. They absolutely refuse to soil their sleeping quarters or feeding grounds. Instead, the entire local population will designate a single, highly specific location as a communal hub, usually a large, flat roof, the deep fork of a massive oak tree, or an elevated woodpile. But this is not just a bathroom. It is a clandestine information exchange. When a raccoon visits the latrine, it spends an agonizing amount of time aggressively sniffing the area. They are reading chemical cryptography. The pheromones left behind by other raccoons provide a highly detailed biological dossier. By processing these scents, a raccoon can determine exactly how many rival males have passed through in the last 24 hours. They can smell what those rivals have been eating, which tells them if the competition is strong and well-fed or weak and starving. They can detect the exact reproductive cycle of the local females, and they can even sense the presence of illness in the population. They don't need to physically meet to hold a summit. They leave encrypted messages in the dark, allowing them to perfectly calculate their next tactical move while remaining entirely unseen. Tactical combat and the aquatic assassins. Despite all their stealth, sometimes a raccoon gets caught in the open. A homeowner lets their large hunting dog out into the yard, or a pack of coyotes corners the raccoon against a fence. When flight is no longer an option, the raccoon immediately switches to a terrifying, highly effective combat protocol. First, they utilize their biological armor. A raccoon's skin and thick layer of subcutaneous winter fat are not tightly attached to their underlying muscle tissue. It is a loose, highly flexible suit. If a large dog grabs a raccoon by the back of the neck or the spine, expecting to snap it, The raccoon can literally rotate its entire body 180 degrees inside its own skin, turning its razor-sharp teeth and claws directly into the face of the attacker. But their most chilling defensive tactic happens near the water. Raccoons are incredibly strong swimmers. If a raccoon is being pursued by a relentless pack of hounds, it will deliberately run toward a deep pond, a river, or even a backyard swimming pool. The raccoon swims out to the deep end and waits. When the enraged, exhausted dog paddles out into the deep water to finish the kill, the raccoon springs its trap. Using its dexterous hands and superior buoyancy, the raccoon will swim directly over the dog, climb onto its head, and use its body weight to violently force the predator underwater. They will hold the dog down with cold, calculating precision until the predator drowns. The raccoon uses the environment to execute a larger, stronger enemy, the parasite bombs and the invisible aerial war. If the intelligence and combat tactics of the raccoon don't terrify you, their biological payload absolutely should. Raccoons are the ultimate carriers. While everyone knows they are a primary vector for the rabies virus, the true nightmare is a microscopic organism they carry in their intestines, called Balisoscaris procyanus, commonly known as the raccoon roundworm. This parasite does not harm the raccoon. It uses the animal as a delivery vehicle. A single raccoon can shed millions of microscopic roundworm eggs in their communal latrines. These eggs are practically indestructible. They can survive in the soil or the dust of your attic for years, completely resistant to standard bleach and freezing temperatures. If a human, especially a homeowner sweeping out an infested attic or a child playing in the dirt, accidentally inhales or ingests these invisible spores, the results are catastrophic. Once inside a human, the larvae don't stay in the stomach. They migrate aggressively through the bloodstream, heading directly for the eyes, the spinal cord, and the brain, causing irreversible neurological devastation. Because they are such a massive biological threat, the United States government is currently waging a secret, invisible war against them from the sky. Every single year, the USDA deploys a fleet of low-flying airplanes and helicopters across the eastern United States. They aren't tracking the raccoons. They are carpet-bombing them with medicine. The government drops millions of small, fish-scented bait blocks over forests and suburbs. Hidden inside each block is a liquid, oral rabies vaccine. When the raccoon bites into the block, the vaccine is absorbed directly through their tonsils. We are spending millions of taxpayer dollars to secretly vaccinate a wild army from the air, simply because we are completely powerless to stop them on the ground. The tactical mask and the iron stomach. Let's talk about their most iconic feature, the black bandit mask around their eyes. Human folklore says they have this mask because they are thieves. Biology tells a much more tactical story. The mask is a built-in biological combat optic. Just like professional football players or military snipers who paint thick black grease under their eyes, the raccoon's black fur is designed to absorb incoming light. It significantly reduces glare, enhancing their contrast and visual acuity. In the wild, this helped them see fish shimmering in dark streams. But in the modern world, this mask allows them to maintain perfect, high-definition night vision while operating under the blinding glare of LED streetlights, security floodlights, and the headlights of oncoming traffic. They are wearing permanent tactical goggles. And whatever they find in the dark, they can consume. A raccoon's digestive tract is an absolute marvel of extreme biological recycling. Their stomach acid is potent enough to safely process rotting, maggot-infested meat that would give a dog lethal food poisoning. But they are also incredibly methodical about toxins. If a raccoon encounters a highly toxic amphibian, like a poisonous toad, it doesn't just bite into it. The raccoon knows the poison is secreted through the skin. It will pick the toad up with its sensitive hands and aggressively roll it back and forth in the dirt and dry grass, physically wiping the toxic slime off the amphibian before safely consuming it. They process our garbage, they neutralize natural poisons, and they turn our waste into brain power.
The final verdict.
We look at the world around us and assume that human beings are the undisputed masters of the environment. We paved the forests, we diverted the rivers, and we built sprawling concrete monuments to our own intelligence. The animals that couldn't adapt were driven to extinction. The ones that remained either became our pets or they became parasites. The rat survives only because it feeds on the careless crumbs of our society. The dog survives because it surrendered its wild nature in exchange for our warmth and protection. But the raccoon is something entirely different. The raccoon has not surrendered, and it is not a parasite. It is a parallel intelligence. They do not fear our cities. They treat them as an interactive puzzle box. Every fence we build teaches them how to climb better. Every lock we design forces their brains to work harder. Every trap we set weeds out the weak, leaving only the biological geniuses to breed. We are not pushing them out. We are actively sharpening their minds. If human civilization were to mysteriously vanish tomorrow, the wolves would reclaim the wild woods, and the oceans would heal. But the cities would not belong to the apes. The sprawling concrete jungles, filled with locked doors, canned food, and complex architecture, would be inherited by the creature perfectly designed to hack them. The masked safecracker, the ultimate urban survivor. So, if you want to keep uncovering the terrifying hidden truths behind the animals living right in your own backyard, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We will see you in the next deep dive into the wild.